for stopping by. Today I'm going to show you the process for making this tag junk journal. The measurements are going to be written on sticky notes, so if you need to write down the measurements, you might want to have a notebook nearby. I don't type them in the description box just to save time. This book had a 2-inch spine, and the width of the album was 5 1/4 by 8. 5 1/4 by 8. I had some chipboard that I didn't want to waste, so my height is not going to be as tall. My book that I show you in this video will be 5 1/4 wide, but it's not going to be, it's going to be like an inch shorter, maybe even a half an inch. So remember, this book had the fold out cover so that you had 3 tags on the front, 3 on the back. That made it easy to stand up. And then there are 3 signatures inside. Okay, the paper I used on this one, oh, it had a seam binding closure also, and seam binding up here. The paper for this one was Vintage Farmhouse Garden by Simple Stories. The paper I'm going to use for this one is the Simple Stories Lemon Twist. I happen to have ordered that from Country Craft Creations, and I thought this would be a good project to use that with. And so instead of having that vintage feel, to me this one will have more of a springy, bright feel. So I won't have it looking as antique. Okay, so to get started, the measurements that I'll be using for this one, you're going to want 2 pieces of heavyweight chipboard. This chipboard, I've already put adhesive on the backs. I had some leftover adhesive that I'm trying to get rid of, so normally I would use the score sheets, but this, you need one that's 5 1/4 by 6 1/2 and one that is 2 by 6 1/2. And again, place your adhesive on the back of just one side. The lightweight chipboard, you're going to need 3 pieces that all measure the same. When I say lightweight, if you don't have it, just it's like the weight of a cereal box. 5 1/4 by 7 1/2, 3 of those. And then the cardstock that we're going to be starting with, you will need one that is 7 1/4 by 8 1/2. I'm trying to get that so you can see it better. One that is 5 by 8 1/2, and 2 of them that are 1 1/2 by 6 1/2. Okay. So to get started, I'm going to go ahead and let's just wrap our, if you are used to making albums from Country Craft Creations, you know that she does the wrapping of her covers separately. It does make the book lay flat, which is nice. So I'm going to go ahead and cover the, this heavyweight one is actually the back cover. So that's where you're going to need your paper that has a 1-inch border around the outside. So this is the paper that is 7 1/4 by 8 1/2. We're going to take off the backing and we're just going to put it on our paper. And to do that, I use my scoreboard as a guide. And I also use the spacers from Country Craft Creations. So you're going to need 2 1-inch spacers. And you place your white paper on your scoreboard. You're going to place a 1-inch spacer at the top and a 1-inch spacer on the side so that you can put your chipboard exactly where it needs to be. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take off the backing of, now this adhesive is not that great. I prefer score sheets, but like I said, I had this and I wanted to use it. It's really, ugh. Might take me a little bit longer to get the backing off. And I had to piece it because I didn't have a sheet that was the right size. It is very sticky though. And if you use the art glitter glue, you totally can, but sometimes you do see the outline of the glue. So by using this flat score sheet, it does make it nice and smooth on your paper. So then I'm just going to place that in the center so that all four sides have that 1-inch border. You're going to want to burnish that just to make sure it has a good stick and that it's nice and flat. Now, being as we already have our scoreboard out, let's go ahead and do our spine piece also. So that's the 2-inch piece. Now, instead of a 1-inch border on all sides, we just want a 1-inch border at the top and the bottom. I want a 1.5-inch side. So that's this spacer. And then we'll place it right here. Okay. So again, I'm going to take off the backing of my adhesive. Oh, I hate this stuff. Ugh, I can't get the backing off it. There we go. Score sheets are the way to go. And then one last one down here. And just butt that up against the side and the top here. And that's all we'll use the spacers for. If you don't have spacers, you just have to measure 1-inch border from the top on this one and 1.5 on the side. As always, you're going to want to give it a good burnish. So now I'm going to place the mat, which you can also purchase at Country Craft Creations, on my board. And I like to do this piece first. So I want to crease all of the edges so that it would bumps, so it goes around the chipboard. So I just bring it up and over and then fold it. And I go around and burnish. Stand it up, bring it over. Do that to all four sides. Okay, some people like to cut out the squares on the corners. I miter them, and I have a little tool that kind of helps me so that I leave the right amount. If you cut out the squares, you can just cut up to the chipboard and out here like so. Cut out that square where the two lines intersect. I am going to use this little device I have. It's a metal piece that gives me, when you miter it at an angle, you need to leave a little bit of space on your white paper. You don't cut right up to the chipboard because we want to cover that corner so that it doesn't show. So then just angle off like so, and you're going to angle all four corners, or you can cut out the squares of all four corners. Now I'm going to use 1/4 inch score tape. I'm going to put that on the perimeter of the chipboard and the paper. And you're going to want to burnish that down also, so that when you take the backing off, the adhesive stays on the chipboard. I'll do that in a second. Now I'm going to go around the cardstock, doing the same on all four sides here. I am also going to be using some art glitter glue, so a wet adhesive. Okay. The cover is really important, so take the extra time just to make sure everything is nice and neat and smooth. Okay, I start with my long sides. Got some scraps to throw away. I start with the long sides, and I'm just going to remove the backing of my tape. And you do need to bring up the sides because we're going to fold it over and we don't want to have those get in the way. So what I do with the art glitter glue then is I run a bead of it right up against the chipboard so that when we bring the paper around, it's going to stick really nice to the chipboard, and then it's going to have a real smooth look. So just bring that right up to the chipboard. I do place glue in between the chipboard and that tape I have. I'm just going to bring it up and over and flatten it out. I kind of start in the middle and then go out with my hands. We want real smooth with no buckling. I am going to take my burnishing tool and go across the edge here just so that it lays down nice and smooth. And I'm going to repeat that on the other side. Wet glue up against the chipboard and then fill in on your cardstock. Bring it up and over, smooth it out. I kind of go up and out with my hands. Then you take your burnishing tool. If you have any excess glue, sometimes I have a little bit that comes out the corner here, just blot that off. And then I'm going to go ahead and smooth out the edge on that one too. So because I miter my corners at an angle, I have to do an extra step, and that is I want to push in this little extra white paper, kind of push it in so that it wraps around that corner. So I usually just take my burnishing tool, one of them, and I just kind of push that down and in. Glue. I just kind of use my fingernails to push that paper down so it doesn't come up as I bring it up and over. Flatten it out and burnish real well. I like to use a Teflon folder, like burnishing tool or bone folder, when I am trying to burnish and get things to lay down flat. Once again, I'm going to wrap that paper by pushing it in and down around that corner. There's just a little bit, but it's going to make the corner nice and neat. Okay, kind of hold those corners down so they don't pop up. And burnish and do your edge. Got something sticky on here, but that's a bad thing about using white, but it'll be covered, but I do have a little mark here. Okay, so the spine piece we do just a little bit differently. So we don't wrap the long sides on this. We're going to leave them open and like as wings. I do like to put score tape at the bottom and at the top. You still want to bring your paper up and over and crease it. On all four sides. Okay. So using your scissors, I'm going to have you cut an angle on the rectangles on the corner where the two lines intersected. We're going to cut that at an angle and just take off a little triangle like so. Okay, and I'm going to do that to all four corners. Getting rid of some bulk. So now what I'm going to do is just the short ends. I'm going to bring the whole thing over, and I am going to put glue on this whole trapezoid area right in here. So the center and the two little triangles on the side. So let me take off the backing here. I go up against the chipboard with glue, and I'm going to fill in glue on my paper. Bring it up and over. Burnish it. And I like to smooth out my edge. Do the same thing on the opposite short side. Bring the paper up and over and burnish it down. And go ahead and burnish that edge so it's smooth. Okay, so now we need to slightly miter so that we don't see any paper coming up over the edge when we put our cover on. Drinking coffee here. Okay, so I just rest my scissors up against the chipboard, and I'm going to do a slight angle. This side I have to flip over, rest my scissors, slight angle, scissors up against the chipboard, slight angle, flip it over. So do that on all sides so that it's slightly tapered. Clean up my mess. Okay, so grab your cover. We are going to adhere the back cover to one side. So I'm going to go ahead and kind of flip this over and on the long sides just so that it will bend fine. I'm going to take my burnishing tool and just kind of run that paper right up against that chipboard so you get a real defined line. This is artisan cardstock, so it is pretty tough. If you're using something lighter weight or not linen-based paper, be careful so you don't rip your paper. I'm going to go ahead and I place score tape almost to the chipboard. And I'm going to go ahead and put one piece in the middle. And I put one at the very end here, and then I go in and I fill in the rest of it with glue. Burnish that down. Putting glue in between the score tape just so that it sticks nice. And I might just put a real slight amount at the edge here. So now I'm going to take my spine piece, my back cover, and I'm just going to bump that up against the chipboard as close as it will go. And I'm going to burnish that by flipping it over. Okay, so we are now going to leave this for a little bit and put that off to the side. And let's take a look at our lightweight chipboard. So get those 3 pieces out. I gotta find them. There it is. Put the pin in my glue for a little bit here. Get a drink of coffee real quick. Okay, these pieces were 5 1/4 by 7 1/2. I like to angle to make them look like a tag. I'm going to angle them, and I like to go over 1 inch and down 1 inch. So I'm going to take my ruler and a pencil, and I'm going to put a tick mark at 1 inch from the edge at the top and 1 inch from the other side in. So just a little tick mark at 1 inch from each end. That tick mark is really hard to see. I might need to make it darker. Okay, now I'm going to go 1 inch down on the side, the long side, and put a tick mark at 1 inch, and down 1 inch on the other side. Put a tick mark. And we're going to cut from one tick mark to the other and slice off that at an angle. So I'm just going to place my ruler. You can put them in your cutter if you want. I'm going to use my blade. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing to the other side. Line up my marks. And so that's the shape of our tag. Now what I do then is I just go and use that as my guide now and slice off the other one, the other pieces. So I'm using that as my pattern or my guide. And I need to do that to the third piece as well. So I'm going to take my original, put it on top of that last piece, make sure they're lined up, slice off the edge to match the original. So now I know that they're all the same. Now eventually we're going to cut a hole, but not yet, because we're going to wait till we cover it with paper. Now we also attach it to the book before we cover it also. So to prepare for that, I'm going to have you get your 1 1/2 inch strips, and we are going to score those with the 1 1/2 inches across the top. And we're going to score it 3/4 of an inch on both of them. These are going to be like construction strips. They are not like they are. And I'm going to go ahead and burnish those. Okay. So the cover, I want to open. The first tag will go this way. The second tag will go out the other way. Okay, so we're going to place our construction strip. So I have all 3 pieces on top of each other. I'm going to go ahead and glue this construction strip to one side. Now you want to make sure you see I have to trim this one a little bit. So I'm just going to trim off because you don't want it to be any longer than the side of the tag. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to glue this to the side of my tag so that the construction strip opens to the inside. Okay, so just run glue on the 3/4 inch side here. I like to be a little bit generous. Get these tags out of the way. And I'm going to go ahead and put it at the very edge of the tag. Then I'm going to go ahead and get rid of any excess glue, and I'm going to burnish that real well. Okay. Okay. So actually, the way I put the one on this side, so that's going to have to be my second tag. The top tag, I want the construction strip on this side, so I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to glue one on the opposite side on here. I got to make sure this is the right length. And this one is, I don't think I need to trim that one. Okay, so this time I'm going to put it on this side, line it up to the very edge. Get rid of any excess glue, and you're burnishing that down. So you have one construction strip on the left, one on the right, and one that doesn't have a construction strip. So let's go ahead and grab our base again. Should be dry. Really bothers me. Okay, so we're going to attach one tag as the front cover. So I'm going to go ahead and do it just like I did my back cover. I'm going to put some score tape. I put 3 strips. One is right up pretty close to that chipboard, almost to the chipboard. Put one in the center and one at the very edge here. I burnish. Take off the backing. Fill in with glue. Just a little bit here on the edge so it can wiggle room. And just like we did on this one, we're going to place this right up against the chipboard. And burnish that. Oh, I put it on upside down. Ugh! I gotta fix mine. Don't do what I did. I put mine on upside down. Let me fix it. Alright, I ripped it off. And this will be covered with paper, so it doesn't matter. Need to pay better attention. Let me try that again. So let's take off the backing. I'm glad I caught it before I left it on there for too long. Okay. Fill in with some glue. Okay. We want to put it on like this. Right up against the chipboard. Now flip it over and burnish. And you will never know I screwed up. Okay, so that's your front cover. So now you want to grab the ticket piece that has, it'll be like this. So looking at my ticket, the hinge is on the right. The construction strip is on my right. And I'm going to glue that. I'm going to open up my book. And I'm going to glue this strip, the 3/4 inch side, right there. And I'm going to butt it up right against the tag so that it lines up and they're right on top of each other. Okay. So I'm going to put glue here. Like I said, I like to be a little bit generous on this part. Okay. With the construction strip on my right, I'm going to place it on the very edge of that cover, and I want to line it up so that the tags are lined up perfectly. Okay, and I'm going to burnish, and I'm going to open it up and burnish. And now the last piece we have, the construction strip, is on the left. We're going to glue that down. Again, making sure all of our tags line up. So I'm going to open up my book. I'm going to put my glue on. Make sure I'm doing this right. I don't want to make another mistake. Okay, and it's going to go right here. Line everything up. Press down. Open it up. And burnish again. All right, so we're going to do two things before we put our pattern paper on. We need to find a magnet. I put one magnet in so that the book stayed closed. Let me show you. I put a magnet on the main cover and on the second tag. The top one I don't have a magnet. So let's do that next. And then we also have to do the seam binding. So I use the basic gray magnets from Country Craft Creations. I'm going to need a positive and a negative. Okay. I don't like it too close to the edge, so I'm going to scoot it in just a hair. And I'm going to put my magnets together to make sure. Okay, so I'm going to go to the tag that is attached to the spine. I'm going to take off the backing of one piece. I say that, but I can't get it off. And I'm going to place it about halfway down, and about an inch in. Push down, take the backing off of the other piece. Come on, paper. There we go. Okay, I'm going to close this, push down so that the magnet goes to the right spot on the opposite. I do place a piece of score tape over it just to keep it in place. And then it just is a little bit nicer and doesn't flop as much. So now you're going to decide on the seam binding color you want. I believe I'm using yellow. Let me just double check that it matches okay. Yes, it does. So I'm going to take, I'd rather it be too long than too short. I'm going to say cut 2 pieces that are 12 inches. Okay. I like to get mine wet and crinkle them. So I just put them in my hand, spray, kind of roll them around. One end I'm going to tie into a knot. The other one's going to stay open. And I have a little fuzzy here I'm going to cut off. Okay, do that to both pieces. Just tie a knot at one end. Some fuzzies to cut off. Okay, so now with the book, all 3 tags are together laying on top of each other. I'm going to kind of find the middle of the front top one, and I'm going to put a piece of score tape, and I'm going to use glue. I'll use score tape in a second. And I'm just going to find about the halfway mark and just put a little bit of glue down. And I'm going to place my seam binding about like so. So about an inch piece. And then to make sure it doesn't go anywhere, that's when I put a piece of seam binding down. Like so. And I'll put another one just to make sure it lays flat. Okay. Now we want the seam binding to line up, and so I'm going to put mine, do I want it on the inside or the outside? I think I want it on the outside. What did I do with this one? The seam binding, yep, it's on the outside. So I want to make sure that they are lined up. So I'm going to turn this. And I'm going to place glue on that back cover just a little bit. My book's upside down right now. And just make sure they line up. And I'll put a couple pieces of score tape just to make sure it lays down flat. Okay. And now we are ready to start getting our pattern paper on. For the pattern paper, on the inside, I just went 2 inches, so the same as what, the same as the width of the chipboard, and instead of 6.5, I went 1 line underneath, like just a hair off. So I didn't go 6 3/8. I did the line in between 6.5 and 6 3/8 because I wanted it pretty much from top to bottom. I did ink my edges, and my sponge is getting black stuff all over. And then I'm just going to go ahead and on this inside piece, you can make it longer if you want, but I just thought it would be enough to cover the chipboard. And I'll show you once we get the pattern paper on. So I'm just using the art glitter glue on the back. And from one side of the chipboard to the next. So it's completely covered. On the inside, I did 5 1/8 across by, I went in between 6.5 and 6 3/8. So it's almost top to bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and put my glue on the back of that. Okay, burnish that on. Now on my book, on this back page, I did end up putting an angled pocket, so I'll probably end up doing that again. But I put the pattern paper down first on this one. I probably should have done the pocket first. We'll see what I'm going to do. I don't know. Okay, so that's the inside. So then I'm going to flip it over. And same thing for the outside. This is 2 inches across because when you wrap it, it does gain a little bit of width. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and glue this on. Again, I inked the edges with black first. And I'm going to burnish that. And then I'm going to put the back piece on. And this was also 5 1/8 across and in between 6.5 and 6 3/8 long. I might just make my angled pocket. I don't know. We'll see. Oh, I got to take off the backing to the score tape here. And burnish. I love this paper. I think it sold out, to be real honest. It went fast. The colors are just so cool. Okay, so that's what we have so far. So now it's time to do the tags. Now what I do is I want to cover the entire, I don't want any kind of border because this is just plain rough chipboard. So what I do is I glue this on. I'm going to ink it first and I glue it on. So that it covers the whole tag. Then once I've done one side, I get my knife and I cut off the excess so that I have it exactly the right size of the tag. Okay, so I'll do one with you. I want to lay this out though to see how I want, what papers I want. So the front cover I know I want as this one. So I'll just do the front cover. Alright, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to ink my edges first. And I gotta do it off to the side because little black things flick off my sponge. Okay. So I'm gonna glue this down so that it completely covers the tag. So I'm going to take the backing off my tape and I'm going to put the glue, I'm going to put it around the edge here to make sure that my tag lays down nice on the edge. And then I'm going to go, the bottom, I can go all the way to the bottom. It's at the top that I don't want to put any extra glue here on the corners because that's going to get cut off. So I just estimated where I'm cutting, so I just left those ends open of no glue. I'm going to lay it down. Making sure it lines up on all of that tag. Burnish it. And we'll trim as needed. And I do the one side at a time. So once you've done, put one piece of paper down, then you do the trimming of that paper. So I'm going to turn it upside down, and I have a little bit of excess that I'm going to have to clean up. So I'll take off the extra here. Now be careful by your seam binding. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and trim that corner. And I'm going to trim this corner. Now, because I had to trim a little, I might have to go back and put a little bit of black ink around the edge where because I cut that off right here. Make sure it lays down, and yep. And so now I'm going to go around. I like a lot of black on mine, the edge. I like it to be kind of drastic. You do not have to do it that drastic. And I'm going to go ahead and close this and make sure that this edge. Okay. So that's what we're going to do for each of the tag pages. So once we have all 6 pages covered, then we're going to go put our holes in. All right, I have all my papers on the fronts and the backs. So it's like this, And on this side we have this. So now it is time to punch the hole at the top so we can put seam binding through it. So I'm going to get my crocodile thingy and I'm going to use the larger hole, and I'm just going to punch through the top one first. Okay. So I turn it upside down because it's easier for me to see, and I'm just going to eyeball it and put it about right there. Okay, so now that I have a hole, I'm going to go ahead and close it, and I'm going to take my pencil and I'm just going to make a circle so that it goes on to the next one. And I'm going to go ahead and punch that hole. Okay. And then now I'm going to close it, and I'm going to make another circle here so I know where to punch the hole on that one. So now we should have our holes pretty much in the same spot, and we do. Let me get this out of the way. Okay. So now it's time to put the holes. So you'll notice that I have bands, elastic bands that hold the papers together. Okay, for our 3 signatures. I do not bind my signatures. I keep them separate so I can add paper, take paper out, so I don't sew them or anything. And we will be using elastics, and you'll see that there's 3 holes at the top and 3 holes at the bottom. So we're going to make a template to make sure that we do it correctly. So I'm going to cut a piece of paper that's 2 by 6.5, and we're going to make it our template. So let me get a 2 by 6.5 piece of paper. Okay, so you're going to need your ruler, and we're going to be drawing some lines on here. So we're going to make a tick mark at 1/2, 1, and 1.5. Do that at the bottom also. Make sure that's lined up. Hold on. Half, 1, 1.5. So I did tick marks at the top and at the bottom. Now I'm going to connect those and draw lines. As long as it's close. Two. Okay, so that's what it should look like. Now we need holes on the lines that we just drew. So I like to go down about 1/4 of an inch. And I'm going to put a mark on the lines, 1/4 of an inch down. On all of them. Okay, so it looks like this. I'm going to do the same thing on the other end, 1/4 of an inch. Like so. Those are where you're going to cut your holes. And I'm going to use this because it's easier for me. This is what I call them, a dowel. Ooh, look at messy, dirty hands. Or no, what do you call that? I don't know, but it's that sharp tool that cuts holes. If I use this, which you can, sometimes I get off a little bit. I would use the small hole, not the large one, but sometimes I don't line it up right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to use this, and I'm just going to make a hole here. There. That one I kind of went off a little bit. Ouch. And there. Okay, so I have 3 holes. I'm going to do that down here also. Okay, so this is my template. So now what you do is you place this on your spine and you're going to put the holes through your chipboard also. Okay, so I'm going to do the first one. I'm going to go ahead and clip this on just so I make sure that I keep it straight. Okay. Second one. Awl. You call it an awl. That I just remembered. And the last one. Okay, so now I'm going to move this here. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. Now I got to clean off this needle. So now it's time to put in the elastics. This is called On a String. I got it from the jewelry department, and it says 1.5 millimeter elastic bead cord. It's the elastic, it's stretchy, and I leave it on the card. I don't cut it yet, okay? So I'm going to show you how to string this so that you have your bands, which will hold your signatures, okay? So this is the inside of my book. Starting at the upper left hand side, I'm going to put the string through the hole going from the outside to the inside. And I'm going to pull it down, and I'm going to go down from the inside to the outside, that first hole on the left down at the bottom. Okay. Going from the outside to the inside, bottom middle hole. Go up to the top. So you're going from the inside to the outside of the top middle hole. Pull it taut. Going from the outside to the inside, top right hole. Okay. Down to the bottom hole, going from the inside to the inside to the outside. So now I'm going to flip my book over. Let's see if these are tight enough. I might want them a hair tighter. This one's a little bit loose. Okay, so I'm going to flip my book over. Now I need to put this down the center hole so that it completes the stitch. Okay, now sometimes you need something to assist you, so I'm going to use some real fine tweezers, and I'm going to stick this down that center hole. Did I get it? Got it. And pull that through. Okay, so it looks like that. And then you have that string coming out the bottom middle, down at the bottom. So we have to do the same thing to the top. So now I cut this off, and I'm going to cut it so that I have about 5-ish inches. I'd rather have too much than not enough. And now I also need to poke that through the middle top hole from the outside going in. So I'm going to use my tweezers, grab onto it, poke it through there, maybe. Coming. There we go. Okay, so you have 2 stitches at the top, 2 at the bottom. So now you take those 2 and you're going to tie a knot pretty tight. Trying to hold that knot so it doesn't, okay. And I'm going to go ahead and just do one more. And I'm going to trim off the excess so that I have about 3/4 of an inch on each side. So this is where we're going to attach our signatures, and we're going to have 3 of them. Okay. Now, to make your signatures, I just use the pattern paper on the outside, and I'm going to make mine, I want them 5 inches long, so it's going to be a 10-inch long paper. Now, to decide how long it should be, I'm going to measure from one hole to the next hole. So 6 inches. Okay, so our signatures are going to be 6 by 10 for the outside cover. 6 by 10. So let me find the paper I want, and I'll show you how to do one. Okay, so I found the papers I wanted. They're 6 inches tall, 10 inches wide. Okay, these are going to be the covers of my signatures. And I'm going to take each of them, and if they're 10 inches, I'm going to score them at 5, right in half. Five inches. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and fold those in half then. And I just kind of like to make sure that they do line up so I can adjust as needed before I score them. Okay, so I think I want to switch these. So these are going to go in our book. Now, you might want to, if you're doing a more vintage one, like I did here, your inside papers might be coffee stained. They can be different sizes. They can come from a book, a magazine, old ephemera if you want, but because the one I'm doing is a little bit more modern and country-ish, maybe, I don't know, I'm not going to use coffee dyed paper. I'm just going to use white typing paper. I'll probably insert some of the collection in my signatures. Again, then you go in and decorate them as needed. You can add a pocket on the front. I didn't add anything on this back pocket yet. I don't know if I want to do anything. I might just leave it plain and decorated. I don't know. But just fold papers in half and put them inside and then decorate. Okay, so once I have my papers, I just keep folding them in half and then I stack them inside the way I want. Then you just place all of them underneath the band. Okay. Now, I will tell you, you might want to cut off a little bit at the top and the bottom so that they don't get ruined. So I usually just take my scissors and just kind of round off the corner. Kind of like a ticket, you know, that rounded. We'll just cut off a little at the top and a little at the bottom so that when you put them underneath the band, they don't get too messed up. So that the band sits inside of that, okay? And that way it lays in there nicely. And then you'll have your pages inside. So I'll probably put a pocket, but all of those will go as the outside covers. Sometimes people laminate them. I might go back and laminate them. I don't know yet. Actually, I might, because I really like this paper and I want it to stay nice. So I might go back and laminate the outsides and then the insides just regular paper. And then when you decorate, go ahead and thread your seam binding through the holes, but you can add 3-dimensional decorations here on this tag, and you can add some 3-dimensional on this one. But on the insides, be careful because you want it to lay flat. So just decorate maybe with papers and don't go so thick. Okay. All right. So that is how you make the book. I'm going to go ahead and finish mine, and then I'll add some pictures at the end to show you. But hopefully that was quick and easy for you, and I look forward to seeing what you have made. So go ahead and post them on the Scrapbookers of Country Craft Creations page on Facebook. I'd love to see them. All right. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know if you have any questions, but hopefully it was pretty clear. All right. So long, people. See you later. in order to get this video out to you quickly, I'm going to go ahead and show you what I've done so far just so I can upload this. I still have to add some things and do a couple last minute stuff, but I made a shaker on the front. I had some polka dot acetate paper, and then I bought the frames to go with this collection. So I still need to put the seam binding through the holes, and I still need to come back and decorate, you know, these tags. But I went ahead and put a frame on the inside cover, and I decorated the 3 signature covers, but I haven't put paper in yet. So just kind of went through and added a few things here and there. I'll be putting white paper in along with putting some of the ephemera on the white paper. And then there's the back cover. So it's mostly done. We're getting there, but I just thought I'd show that to you real quick. So if you have questions, let me know.